if you want to create component through the CLI, through the CLI is meaning of through the command line. If you want to create component through the command line or CMD, you can create. That is the easiest approach to create a component. Okay? So if you want to create, you can use a VS Code terminal. For that, in the VS Code provides a terminal. Use VS Code terminal, create a new terminal. Okay. By default, if you are using first time the terminal, then it is a PowerShell. Here you will get the PowerShell. In my case, I'm using a CMD. Okay. If you want to use a CMD, you can change that PowerShell to the CMD. Okay. How you can change that PowerShell to CMD? Just use a drop-down option. Here mention that the drop-down arrow. Click on the drop-down arrow. Select a default profile. Okay. Select default profile. It gives a pop-up. It lists out the how many CMDs or bash present in your machine. Okay, that is list out here. In that, you have to select command prompt for Windows /system32 cmd.exe. Select that it and close that terminal, and again open that terminal. In the terminal, new terminal, it will open your then by default CMD. In that case, there is no PowerShell is there. Okay, because you are already right now you change to PowerShell to CMD. So it will by default you will get the CMD. So recommendation, use a CMD instead of PowerShell. Okay. PowerShell is used for the system oriented applications and all these things. Will not be deal with the system. Okay, so just use a CMD. So here we can create the component. There is one more command to create a component through the CLI. That is ng-gc, where ng stands for Angular, G stands for generate, C stands for component. It is a shorthand command. We are using a shorthand command. ng is meaning of Angular, G is meaning of a generate, C is meaning of a component, and gives a component name. For example, I am giving the component name as a student and just hit the enter. It created the view file, your Typescript file, your CSS file, and your spec.ts file. And also it is validated, means your component is registered in your app.module.ts file. All these things are done by Angular for you. Okay, so check out. It is created if you are seeing, it is created student folder. In that student folder, it created student component.css, student component.html, student component.spec.ts used for testing purpose, student.component.ts file. In student.component.ts file, it also write the code as well as the right component, means all metadata it is mentioned. Whatever that we write manually, here all the metadata is mentioned automatically. Again, one more interface is implement on init. Okay, basically it is one of the Angular lifecycle hook. Okay, by default it is implemented. Why we use that on init method? So if initially you want to display any things to the end user, means initially you have to render some promotional activities to your application, you have to display any offers of your products. That part will be, we can dynamically manage in ng on init method. For that we use a ng on init. The name implies on init. While initializing your application, it is collected all the data and then it render in your component. Okay, for that initial purpose we use a ng on init, initial purpose rendering. For you have to implement the on init interface. Without that interface, you cannot access that method. Okay, and this is one of the life cycle hook of a Angular component. Okay, understand this thing? Now, if you check student component.html file, one template code is written automatically. Paragraph tag and student work. Okay, all these things are done. It's your Angular side. Again, your component is registered in your app.module.ts file. If you check out that app.module.ts file, then it's, it's too slow. Okay, it's display the student component, means that component is also a register. No need to require to register explicitly. All the process is take care by Angular. Only one steps is remaining, that is mapping of a component. Mapping of component means you have to, whatever the selector name, you have to map that component. You can decide whenever where you want to map that component. So just copy that selector name and we can map that component. For example, we can map that component in employee component and its view file that already have been created by menu. So we can map here itself instead of app.component.html. If your requirement where you want to map, it's not necessary always you have to map that component in app.component.html. According to the project requirement, you can map that component and you can render it that data to the end user. So here we mapping that component employee.component.html. So you will get output student works. First, it is rendering app component. Inside the app component, we can map that employee component that it display the employee component data. In the employee component, we can map that student component. That student works is displayed. Clear these things, everybody?